A Boeing 747 on the runway was fully ready for takeoff. Through the thick fog, the pilot pushed the thrust levers forward, turned the headlights on, and the aircraft had now crossed its takeoff speed, a speed from which returning is almost impossible. But at that exact moment, a shadow began to appear through the fog, and this shadow was of another Boeing 747 coming from the opposite direction on the same runway, now only a few meters away. What happened next is difficult even to imagine. The question is, how did the situation escalate to this point? Where was the air traffic controller? And what was the one small mistake that led to the most catastrophic accident in aviation history? This tragic story unfolded in Spain's Canary Islands, known today as the Tenerife Airport disaster. Welcome back to Think and Grow with Hamden Videos. Viewers. The story begins one day before the accident, March 26, 1977. Pan Am Flight 1736, a Boeing 747 jumbo jet, took off from Los Angeles Airport. It was scheduled to land in New York, pick up additional passengers, and then continue to its final destination, the city of Las Palmas in the Canary Islands. This was a chartered flight, and fully booked, carrying mostly elderly passengers headed to Las Palmas to enjoy a cruise ship. Las Palmas is the capital of the Canary Islands. Look at it, about 100 kilometers off the Moroccan coast. This place is globally famous for its tropical climate, but in 1977, behind the Canary Islands' beauty, there was political tension. A group called MPIAC, which sought independence from Spain, often used violence in their campaign. One such violent event set the stage for the disaster. Pan Am Flight 1736 picked up passengers from New York, SJFK Airport, and continued toward Las Palmas. Its cabin crew included Captain Victor Grubbs, 56, First Officer Robert Bragg, 39, Flight Engineer George Warnes, 46, 13 flight attendants, and 380 passengers. These were all the details of Pan Am Flight 1736, now cruising over the Atlantic Ocean. Now let's move to the second aircraft destined to be involved in the accident. At Amsterdam Airport in the Netherlands, KLM Flight 4805, also a Boeing 747, was preparing for departure. Its cockpit crew included Captain Jacob 50, First Officer Klaas 42, and Flight Engineer Willem 48. There were 11 flight attendants and 235 passengers on board. After boarding, KLM Flight 4805 took off and headed to Las Palmas, just like the Pan Am jet. Meanwhile, at Las Palmas Airport, two men approached the terminal building. They placed a bag outside a flower shop and disappeared. Inside the bag was a bomb with a countdown timer. At exactly 1 p.m., a phone call came to the airport reception. The caller claimed to be from the MPA-IAC group, the same group mentioned earlier, and warned that a bomb would explode at Las Palmas Airport within 15 minutes. The airport staff quickly evacuated the entire airport before the 15-minute mark. Panic erupted when a massive blast actually occurred right after 15 minutes. Part of the terminal roof collapsed due to the explosion. After that, all airport operations were suspended. Flights were cancelled, and incoming flights were diverted. Soon after, KLM Flight 4805 from Amsterdam approached Las Palmas, but the air traffic controller informed them about the blast and diverted them to Tenerife Airport, 110 kilometers away. After an additional 25-minute flight, KLM landed at Tenerife Airport at 1:38 p.m. At the same time, Pan Am Flight 1736 approaching Las Palmas was also diverted to Tenerife. Almost all flights were being diverted there, as it was the nearest airport. Suddenly, Tenerife Airport became crowded. Note that Tenerife Airport is located in a mountainous area. Its elevation is about 2,000 feet, close to the Atlantic Ocean. The surrounding tall mountains cause moist ocean air to rise, cool, and instantly turn into clouds. A very normal phenomenon here. When Pan Am and KLM landed, visibility was good, but suddenly, clouds rolled in, and visibility dropped. At times, visibility went down to 300 meters. 10 cleared 2 kilometers within moments. It was unclear how long they would have to stay at Tenerife. Passengers were deboarded to relax after the long flight. Meanwhile, KLM Flight 4805, which had to return to Amsterdam later, decided to refuel at Tenerife so they wouldn't waste time refueling at Las Palmas. Once it reopened, just as they began refueling, news arrived that Las Palmas Airport had reopened. Both flights reboarded their passengers, but due to KLM's refueling, the taxiway became blocked. Airport is small. One runway, one taxiway, and one apron near the terminal visible in the animation. This level of traffic, especially with jumbo jets, was abnormal. Because the taxiway was blocked, Pan Am could not leave the terminal. They were told to wait until KLM finished refueling. At 4:45 p.m., KLM finished refueling and prepared to move. The apron was full and blocking the taxiway, so the controller instructed parked on the western side to taxi on the runway itself toward the eastern end, make a 180 turn, and prepare for takeoff. When KLM 4805 began taxiing, the controller instructed Pan Am to follow KLM on the runway but exit onto the taxiway from exit C3, because KLM would be taking off from that same runway. Visibility was poor and worsening. KLM reached the eastern end and made a 180 turn into takeoff position. Pan Am's pilots also began taxiing on the runway, but due to fog, they saw exits C1 and C2, yet missed exit C3 entirely. Exit C3 lead back toward the apron. Maybe that's why they didn't notice it. Also, Tenerife Airport lacked proper signage. Runway exits were indicated on the tarmac, but these markings were missing. As Pan Am passed C2, KLM's captain asked the tower for takeoff permission. This is where a chain of misunderstandings began. Tower couldn't see either aircraft due to fog, and Tenerife lacked a ground radar system. The tower began giving KLM instructions about their post-takeoff route, but these instructions were not takeoff clearance. KLM misunderstood this as permission to take off. Captain responded, "We are at takeoff. Whether aside at takeoff or taking off remains unclear." Tower replied okay, but a second later clarified, "Stand by for takeoff. I will call you." This was a crucial message. It clearly meant, "Do not take off." But the message never reached KLM's cockpit clearly, because at that exact moment, Pan Am's pilots transmitted, "We are still on the runway." Both transmissions overlapped, creating only a distorted sound in KLM's cockpit. Pan Am had unknowingly passed exit C3. The tower told Pan Am to notify them once they exited the runway. Pan Am replied okay. But by this time, KLM's captain had already pushed the thrust levers forward, assuming he had clearance. Fog limited visibility to only 300 meters. Suddenly, Pan Am's pilots saw headlights emerging from the fog. At first, they thought KLM was stationary. Seconds later, they realized KLM was speeding straight toward them. They tried to turn off the runway, but it was too late. KLM's right engine struck Pan Am's first-class section, tearing it apart. KLM's landing gear collapsed, and the aircraft crashed 150 meters down the runway, erupting into flames because its fuel tanks were full. All 248 people on board KLM died instantly. Pan Am passengers didn't even understand what happened. First-class passengers died on impact. However, many economy passengers escaped through holes in the fuselage, some jumping from 20 feet to survive. Out of Pan Am's 396 passengers, only 61 survived. More might have survived, but the fog prevented the tower from noticing the accident until another aircraft spotted flames on the runway. Rescue vehicles couldn't move fast due to fog. A total of 583 lives were lost within seconds. The investigation analyzed both cockpit voice recorders. The details revealed matched everything shown in this video. Investigators concluded this was a chain of events. The bomb blast at Las Palmas, KLM refueling at Tenerife, and blocking the taxiway's sudden drop in visibility, Pan Am missing exit C3. However, the primary blame was placed on KLM Flight 4805's crew, because ultimately, they attempted takeoff without clearance, even though the flight engineer had warned the captain seconds earlier. The Tenerife airport disaster became a wake-up call for the entire aviation industry. After this, call signs were improved, communication rules changed, ground radar became mandatory. Runway, holding points and indicators were standardized today. Tenerife has two airports, the northern one where the accident occurred, and a newer southern airport, built at lower altitude where fog and clouds do not interfere with visibility. We hope you like and share this, think and grow with Hamden Video. Thank you for your kind comments. See you in the next amazing video.